This is John King. I'm speaking with Lawrence VanDyke, who's running for the Montana Supreme Court, and he's brought a stack of stuff to the studio today. We're going to take a look at some of the things he's brought. Let's start here, Lawrence. You've got a newspaper clipping. Why is this interesting?
So, I was down in Bozeman, which is where I'm from. And this last Sunday, right here in the Bozeman Daily Chronicle, is this big Vote Democrat on November 4th. And right on the left-hand side there, one of the prominent pictures right below Amanda Curtis is Mike Wheat, Montana Supreme Court Justice, my opponent. And the reason I bring this up is because, Mike Wheat just recently filed a brief in federal court saying, hey, if partisan endorsements of judicial candidates is just a terrible thing, it'll really ruin their impartiality. And yet his friends, he's from Gallatin County, his friends in the Gallatin Democrats are endorsing him. So, part of my issue with this is the hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy of you need to have justices that are going to be principled, that are not going to be results oriented. And I think this is just another example of what I'm talking about, results oriented on this particular issue, this issue of partisan endorsements.
All right, number two, you got another.
Number two, they've also said, they're also, people saying, oh no, outside money trying to buy the elections. Well, here's a flyer. It actually looks like, and it was sent out obviously to try to impersonate the voter's guide that's sent out by the Secretary of State. Look here on the back. Look at the website here. It's supposed to look like a Secretary of State voter's guide, but actually it's put out for the Montanans for Liberty and Justice. Montanans for Liberty and Justice is it appears to be sort of the so-called dark money organization for the Montana trial lawyers.
And so is it a PAC?
It's a PAC. It's a PAC, and it's right next door to the trial lawyers PAC, which is called the Law PAC. It looks like this is, they're doing advertisements, they're doing these kind of mailers, and this is one to impersonate and try to, I think what's particularly bad about this is that it's trying to impersonate an official government mailing. But then, so it's kind of hard to see, what are they trying to say here? But when you look closely, it's endorsing my opponent, and then it also, right here, it has an old Billings Gazette thing about me being thrown off the ballot, which of course is old news and has been, that was reversed, but it doesn't say anything about that. So. My biggest issue, again, we're talking about hypocrisy here. On one hand, you've got my opponent saying, oh no, outside money is really, money from groups is really going to ruin the election, dark money, all of those things. And yet the trial lawyers are spending record amounts. They're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you don't hear him complaining about that at all. So again, it's that results-oriented, are we going to have a principled approach about this, or are we just going to complain about the fact that my opponents or we just don't like money spent by groups that don't support him. That's the issue.
And we got another flyer.
And so finally, you've got this issue here where former Justice Jim Nelson, he filed he put this in the Montana Lawyer, which is what we get. This is the second one of his, ran in about a year. We get this when you're a member of the bar. He got the guest opinion about a month ago, and he's also filed a shortened version of this in the Missoulian and the Bozeman Daily Chronicle and a lot of state newspapers. And now apparently him and some of his other former justices are coming out. And what they're saying is, don't support Lawrence VanDyke because, there's all this money being spent to support Lawrence VanDyke. Well, we've already talked about how there's also all this money being spent by trial lawyers, by the trial lawyer money machine, which is the majority, in fact, the supermajority of the lawyers that are giving to that PAC have cases in front of the court right now, or very recently, like last year, had cases in front of the court. So you've got that issue. One of the deeply ironic things I think that former Justice Nelson says here is, he says, in the real world of politics, money, whether contributed directly to the candidate or spent, to support them, like independent money, like what the trial lawyers do, buys loyalty on the bench. Well, 10 years ago, Justice Nelson had more than $300,000, record amounts at that time. I think a lot more will be spent in this election by the trial lawyers, but record amounts. They spent $300,000. And yet, so the deep irony is he's basically admitting that he felt bought and paid for those last 8 years that he was on the bench. And yet he's out there saying these claims. The hypocrisy that's going on here, it's bad enough to have hypocrisy in politics. When you're talking about hypocrisy with regard to judicial elections, what that shows is that you're not being principled. You're being results oriented. And that's exactly why I'm running.